December 25th, 2024. For some, it was a day of joy and celebration. But for the passengers of Azerbaijan Airlines Flight 8243, it marked the beginning of a tragedy that would grip the world. A missile strike, a desperate fight for survival, and unanswered questions. What truly happened that day? And who will bear the weight of responsibility? This is the story of Flight 8243. The day began like any other for many in Azerbaijan. Unlike much of the Western world, where December 25th is synonymous with Christmas, in Azerbaijan it is a regular workday. Airports bustled with activity, business deals continued, and travelers moved through the terminals with a purpose. For the 67 passengers and crew of Flight 8243, this day was about reaching their destinations. Each traveler had their reasons. Some were business professionals bound for Grozny, aiming to close deals before the year ended. Others were families eager to reunite with loved ones. Among the passengers were international travelers, perhaps using this flight as a connection to another leg of their journey, and even individuals seeking medical care. The Embraer 190 aircraft, a reliable workhorse of regional air travel, taxied to the runway at Haidar Aliyev International Airport, ready for what should have been a routine flight to Grozny, Russia. At the controls of Flight 8243 were Captain Igor Kshnykin and co-pilot Alexander Kalyaninov, two aviators whose professionalism and expertise were widely respected. Captain Kshnykin, born in Baku in 1962, had a career spanning over 4 decades. After graduating from the Sassovo Civil Aviation Flight School, he accumulated over 15,000 flight hours, with 11,200 as captain. Known for his calm demeanor and unparalleled skill, Kshnykin was a veteran of the skies who had seen it all. His co-pilot, Alexander Kalyaninov, was a rising star in Azerbaijan's aviation community. Born in 1992, he earned a master's degree in aviation transport from Ukraine's National Aviation University. Though younger and less experienced, Kalyaninov had already proven himself as a dependable and competent aviator. Together, the two men were prepared to handle the challenges of the day, or so they thought. Flight 8243 departed Baku at 9 a.m. local time. The skies were clear as the aircraft ascended and cruised over the Caspian Sea. For the first 30 minutes, everything proceeded smoothly. Passengers relaxed, some likely napping or flipping through magazines, while the cabin crew ensured the flight remained comfortable. At approximately 10:15 a.m., as the plane approached Grozny, the first signs of trouble emerged. Dense fog enveloped the airport, rendering visibility nearly non-existent. Complicating matters, GPS signals were jammed, likely the result of ongoing military operations against Ukrainian drones in that region. Unable to safely land, Captain Kshnykin made the prudent decision to divert the flight to Makhachkala, Dagestan. As the aircraft turned toward its new destination, the challenges only mounted. The weather in Makhachkala proved equally uncooperative, leaving the crew with little choice but to divert once more, this time to Aktau, Kazakhstan. By now, time and fuel were critical concerns. Around 11 a.m., as the plane maneuvered near Grozny, disaster struck. A Russian Panzer S-1 missile, fired amid heightened military tensions, hit the aircraft. The missile caused severe damage to the plane's control systems, leaving the crew with limited options. Passengers reported hearing a deafening explosion, followed by a rapid loss of cabin pressure. Panic swept through the cabin as oxygen masks dropped and the plane lurched violently. Despite the catastrophic damage, Captain Kshnykin and co-pilot Kalyaninov fought to maintain control of the crippled aircraft. Their focus shifted to executing an emergency landing at Aktau International Airport. But fate had other plans. Approximately 20 kilometers from the airport, the Embraer 190 descended rapidly and crashed into the desolate steppe. The impact broke the plane into 2 main sections. The rear section remained relatively intact, which proved critical for the survival of 29 passengers. The front section, however, bore the brunt of the crash, leading to the tragic deaths of both pilots, a flight attendant, and 35 others on board. Survivors described a harrowing scene marked by screams, silence, and the overwhelming smell of jet fuel. Emergency responders arrived quickly, transporting the injured to nearby hospitals. One flight attendant, speaking from her hospital bed, expressed gratitude for simply being alive, a sentiment echoed by many who lived to tell the tale. In the days following the crash, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev publicly accused Russia of being responsible for the downing of the plane. He criticized the initial explanations offered by Russian authorities, including claims that a bird strike or onboard explosion caused the crash. Aliyev labeled these as attempts to obscure the truth, stating, "Russia must acknowledge its role, punish those responsible, and provide compensation to the victims' families." Russian President Vladimir Putin responded with condolences, calling the incident a tragic mistake. While Russia stopped short of admitting direct involvement, it pledged to cooperate with investigators and support compensation efforts. The Kremlin cited the ongoing investigation as the reason for withholding further comment, but tensions between the two nations grew as accusations and demands for transparency continued to mount. The crash of Azerbaijan Airlines Flight 8243 is just one example of how the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict has significantly disrupted global aviation. Since the conflict began, airlines and regulatory authorities have been grappling with a range of unprecedented challenges, underscoring the fragility of civilian airspace during times of war. The closure of Ukrainian airspace following Russia's invasion in February 2022 marked the beginning of widespread airspace restrictions. Many countries banned Russian aircraft from their airspace in response to the invasion, prompting Russia to impose reciprocal restrictions. These measures forced airlines to reroute flights, often adding hours to flight times, increasing fuel consumption, and driving up operational costs. Some regions, like Ukraine, have become nearly inaccessible to commercial air travel. Kyiv-Boryspil Airport, once a bustling hub, has been dormant since February 2022. The suspension of flights to and from Ukraine has not only led to significant financial losses for airlines, but has also disrupted travel patterns across Europe and beyond. Beyond logistical and economic challenges, the conflict has introduced safety concerns that cannot be ignored. GPS interference caused by electronic warfare has become a significant issue, particularly in regions near the conflict zone. Civilian aircraft operating over areas like the Black Sea and parts of Cyprus have reported daily instances of GPS jamming and spoofing, affecting navigation systems and increasing the risk of accidents. Aviation authorities estimate that this interference impacts nearly 1,000 civilian flights every day, posing a grave challenge to air traffic management. The broader risk of civilian aircraft being mistakenly targeted by military forces remains one of the most alarming consequences of the conflict. While incidents like Malaysia Airlines Flight MH17 in 2014 shocked the world, Azerbaijan Airlines Flight 8243 highlights that these risks persist even a decade later. Missiles and military operations have become a leading cause of airline passenger fatalities in recent years, underlining the urgent need for preventative measures. To address these challenges, aviation authorities and international organizations have implemented several safety protocols. Airlines have adjusted their flight paths to avoid conflict zones, even when it means longer and more expensive routes. Technological advancements are also underway, with efforts focused on improving aircraft navigation systems to mitigate the impact of GPS interference. Global aviation organizations are working to develop standardized protocols for operating near conflict areas. However, the unpredictable nature of warfare means that no system is foolproof. The crash of Flight 8243 serves as a stark reminder that civilian aviation will remain vulnerable unless governments and industries collaborate to enhance safety measures. The black boxes from Flight 8243 were swiftly recovered and sent to Brazil, where Embraer and the Brazilian Air Force are analyzing the data. Preliminary findings confirmed what many suspected. The missile strike was the primary cause of the crash. The investigation, overseen by representatives from Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Russia, remains ongoing. International aviation experts are closely monitoring developments, particularly the risks associated with flying over conflict zones. The growing dangers faced by passengers and crew highlight the urgent need for renewed efforts to ensure the safety of civilian airspace. For Azerbaijan Airlines, the crash of Flight 8243 stands as a somber reminder of the challenges faced in aviation, particularly in a region often marked by political and logistical complexities. Established in 1992 following the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Azerbaijan Airlines has become a symbol of national pride, connecting Azerbaijan to the world with a modern fleet and an expanding network. However, its history has not been without tragedy. On December 5, 1995, Flight A56, a Tupolev Tu-134B3, operating a domestic route from Nakhchivan to Baku, met a devastating fate shortly after takeoff. The aircraft experienced an engine failure, a critical moment that required split-second decision-making. Tragically, the crew made an error that proved catastrophic. Instead of isolating the failed engine, they inadvertently shut down the functioning one, leading to a complete loss of control. The crash claimed 52 lives and left 30 survivors, marking one of the airline's darkest days. A decade later, on December 23, 2005, Flight 217, an Antonov An-140 bound for Aktau, Kazakhstan, crashed into the Caspian Sea shortly after takeoff from Baku. All 23 people on board, including 18 passengers and 5 crew members, lost their lives. Investigators identified the cause as a failure in the aircraft's gyroscopes, which provided the pilots with incorrect altitude information. This instrument failure left the crew unable to maintain proper control, leading to the crash. These incidents highlight the inherent risks and challenges of aviation, particularly in the early years of the airline's operations. Each tragedy prompted significant changes, from stricter maintenance protocols to enhanced pilot training programs. Over the years, Azerbaijan Airlines has worked diligently to improve safety measures and rebuild its reputation, investing in state-of-the-art aircrafts and adhering to rigorous international standards. The crash of Flight 8243, however, underscores that even the most modern systems and experienced crews can be vulnerable to external factors, such as geopolitical tensions and military errors. While the airline has made significant strides since those early tragedies, the memory of these events and the lives lost continues to shape its commitment to safety and reliability. What are your thoughts on this tragedy? Who should be held accountable, and what measures must be taken to ensure civilian flights are never caught in the crossfire of military operations again? Share your views in the comments. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Together we can honor the lives lost and advocate for safer skies.